Before there was a Grateful Dead, there was Jerry Garcia, a kind of goofy banjo player who loved Americana, bluegrass, Appalachian music, jug band music, and pretty much anything that allowed string musicians to shine. Which makes perfect sense since he grew up in a household that loved music. In fact, his parents named him after the Jewish composer Jerome Kern, who wrote countless songs. You may know those songs from the people who sang them, like Old Man River from Showboat and Yesterday's from Barbra Streisand, which I'm not going to try to sing. Jerry had a band called Old and in the Way, a bluegrass band that played standards of the scene, and many of those songs became Dead and JGB standards. Two notable Jewish members of that band were David Grisman and John Kahn, and we'll talk more about them later. Jerry's first wife, Sarah, was also Jewish, and they got married in 1967. They were divorced in 1969, and they had a daughter named Heather. You can hear Jerry and Sarah singing together and playing together on a number of songs on the album Before the Dead. It's wonderful. One of the songs that they played is actually Deep Elem Blues. Jerry met Bobby when he was teaching guitar lessons at Dana Morgan's music store. That's where he also met Billy when Jerry bought Billy's dad's banjo. Bobby was 16 years old, Jerry needed students, and Bobby wanted to learn. They jammed together and became fast friends. And a lot can be said about Bobby's guitar playing. They were interesting in strange ways. In fact, if you watch Mickey gyrate over here, you can see that as he plays the Bobby parts, it's an interesting way of playing guitar. I'm not sure who's the spice and who's the meat and potatoes in the Jerry-Bobby duo. Much like in the grunge series that we did, where we talked about Hillel Slovak teaching Flea to play bass to fit his style of music. Again, apologies for the meat and potatoes conversation. Together, those two famously formed the Mother McCree's Uptown Jug Champions, which then became the Warlocks, and most of you have heard the famous story of the band sitting around trying to come up with a new name and opening up an encyclopedia and finding the term Grateful Dead and its meaning. I want to be specific about the meaning. The meaning is this: the soul of a dead person, or angels, showing gratitude to someone who, as an act of charity, arranged their burial. Now, this is very much a Jewish concept. It's called Chesed Shel Emet, and you may recognize that name from the funeral home in Oak Park. The words literally mean the true kindness. The idea is that when you do something, or I do something nice for somebody, there are sometimes ulterior motives. I'm hoping to get paid back, or I'm hoping that we're keeping tabs, or I'm looking for some sort of karmic payback from that person. But when you care for the dead, or you care for somebody in a way where you bury them, they can never repay you. And that is true kindness. And I think it's pretty special that we have that idea of this karmic appreciation from that dead person, otherwise known as the Grateful Dead. Now that we've come full circle, let's talk about the Grateful Dead's first show, which was an acid test on December 4th, 1965. Ken Kesey, Neil Cassidy, Mountain Girl, Wavy Gravy, and their traveling circus was the revolution of psychedelic exploration. They brought the beatniks, the poets, the freaks, the outlaws all together. They encouraged everybody to listen to Timothy Leary and tune in, turn on, and drop out. With the Merry Pranksters, there were a few notable Jews: Stuart Brand, Denise Kaufman, and Joe Cord. Stuart came out of the U.S. Army looking for adventure, and he found it with the Merry Pranksters. He became an organizer of the acid tests, and he had an incredible career of writing, organizing, and advocating. Denise Kaufman, or Mary Microgram as she was known, was a prankster that went on to form the legendary Ace of Cups, an all-girl band that opened for Jimi Hendrix, the band, Janis Joplin, and many more. She then became a yoga teacher to the stars in Hawaii, working with Madonna, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Quincy Jones, and Jane Fonda. Joe McCord was famously a longtime friend of Jerry, who in an interview said that Jerry was amazed that he could roll a joint with one hand, which honestly I'm amazed at too. Joe was hurt when he found out that Jerry died in rehab, because somehow in all the time they spent together, Jerry was able to hide the fact that he had a drug addiction. And it's rumored that Jerry said that he loved and respected Joe so much that he didn't want to let him into that part of his life. The last figure in this section is Alan Ginsburg, and as I mentioned, the pranksters brought those beats and poets together. Ginsburg was at the first acid test, and as you could see from that poster, he was part of the acid test. I could spend a whole hour just talking about Alan Ginsburg, his contribution and the crossover with the scene, but I won't. I'm just going to show you this picture of Alan dancing on acid to the Grateful Dead. Now, the song, The Other One, was written about the Merry Pranksters and Neil Cassidy. It was written in 1967 and played throughout their career, including in their second to last show. It was a bookend of sorts. And with that, The Other One.
She lays on me this road, and rainbows spiral round and round and tremble and explode. You left the smoking critter of my mind, I like blown away. But the heat come round and busted me for smiling on a cloudy day. Coming around y'all now. Coming around. Coming around y'all now. In circles. Escaping through the lily fields, I came across an empty space. It trembled and exploded, left the bus stop in its place. The bus came by and I got on, that's when it all began. There was Cowboy Neil at the wheel of a bus tune.